Sunday reading and sermon from the United Parish of Carver. My name is Pastor Bill Ketchum, and our reading this morning is from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 21, verses 1 through 11. When they had come near Jerusalem and had reached Bethphage at the Mount of Olives, Jesus sent two disciples, saying to them, "Go into the village ahead of you, and immediately you'll find a donkey, tied and a colt with her. Untie them and bring them to me. If anyone says anything to you, just say this, 'The Lord needs them,' and he will send them immediately." This took place to fulfill what had been spoken through the prophet, saying, "Tell the daughter of Zion, look, your king is coming to you, humble and mounted on a donkey, and on a colt, the foal of a donkey." The disciples went out and did as Jesus had directed them. They brought the donkey and the colt and put their cloaks on them, and he sat on them. A very large crowd spread their cloaks on the road, and others cut branches from the trees and spread them on the road. The crowds that went ahead of him that followed were shouting, "Hosanna, the Son of David! Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord! Hosanna in the highest heaven!" When he entered Jerusalem, the whole city was in turmoil, asking, "Who is it? Who is this?" The crowds were saying, "This is the prophet Jesus from Nazareth in Galilee." This ends this morning's reading. May the words of my mouth and the blessings of my heart be with you, Lord, and with us this morning. May my words and thoughts be acceptable in your sight. Amen. So to understand the triumphant entry in Jerusalem by Jesus, I'll tell a story about a small town. The town is Belfast, Maine. Not that long ago, the largest employer was chicken farming. You can still see many huge barns in the area that house the chickens. A prominent member of a large corporation thought Belfast, Maine would make an ideal call center for the company. The people were friendly and they needed work. All went well at first. People in the area had work all year long, and it wasn't as difficult as working in the chicken coops. A few years into the relationship with the town, the corporation decided that the town needed some sprucing up. First, they wanted all the town stores to have new awnings, the same color as the corporate colors. The corporation would pay for the awnings, but the decree did not go over well with the independent Mainers. The real interesting change came when the corporation decided to clean up Tom's bike shop. For years, the bike shop had been on the main road coming into town, the kind of town which has one road in and one road out. Tom's bike shop front yard had at least 40 old rusting bikes, all year long standing out in the weather. The corporation representative came by and bought every bike that Tom had in his front yard. A few trucks were hired and all the bikes went off to the Belfast dump. What the corporation representative didn't realize was Belfast had a recycling center at the dump. Tom came by and recycled all the bicycles, and within a few days, every bike was standing back on Tom's front lawn. Jesus' triumphant entry into Jerusalem, and I'm wearing my walking into Jerusalem outfit this morning with my sandals, had the element of street theater that played out in Belfast, Maine. In fact, when we talk about the triumphant entry of Jesus into Jerusalem, it was street theater. The road from Jericho, which Jesus was traveling, was the main road into Jerusalem. Thousands of people from the region of Judea had gathered in the villages and had begun to walk towards the festival of Passover celebrated in Jerusalem. They gathered in the villages for safety. The village groups got larger as they merged on the road. The idea of a parade is still far off because the last 15 miles or so up to Jerusalem is just that, up. Jerusalem was built high on a hill for protection from enemies, not for the convenience of pilgrims. What are these pilgrims, including Jesus, going to find when they get near Jerusalem? They will be entering a city ruled by the Romans, who are neither the race nor the religion of the people of Judea. Not only is there tension between the Romans and the Jews, there are divisions between the different factions within the Jewish community. One of which is the disagreement of how to interact with the Roman governor and the local client king, King Herod. There's trouble in Riverdale, and the crowds haven't even arrived yet. What do the crowds of people bring to Jerusalem? The yearly holiday of Passover is a time of heightened passions. It's a centuries-old tradition of recalling the origin of the Jewish people, and they gather there as one. They participate in hallowed sacred sacrificial rites at the temple. Yes, it is a parade, and there has been trouble in the past. Riots and mayhem have erupted when so many people get together, so the police and military are on high alert. The immediate concern is that a small personal dispute in the market or temple can spread to an all-out riot between factions. The stage is now set for a street scene which is welcoming a charismatic preacher and his following to come into the city. We notice that some people call Jesus Son of David, along with Hosanna, which means save us. The people who have arrived early line the streets looking at the human parade, and there is an element of who is he? The people who have heard of Jesus shout, save us, because they have hope that he is the one to restore Jerusalem to its glory and out from under the rule of the oppressors. Son of David is the assumption that Jesus comes like the successful military ruler David. However, in response to the question, who is he? People are responding, the prophet Jesus from Nazareth in Galilee. And according to today's reading, the triumphal entry of Jesus into Jerusalem is successful in shaking up the city. In verse 10, we hear the entry described as turmoil. In a closer translation would be earthquake. All of Jerusalem is affected by the presence of Jesus, and that would really, really alarm the authorities. Jesus is in a precarious situation. He's humble, unlike a military person riding a donkey. From a previous verse, we hear he is humble and gentle in heart. He has not only caught the attention of the people who say, blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord, but the authorities who see him as a challenge to their power structure. He's not just some passive street artist rearranging bicycles on the main street of Belfast, Maine. He has a following, and he is a force to be reckoned with at the biggest festival of the year. The triumphal entry into Jerusalem of Jesus, described like an earthquake, puts the city in a quandary. How do they treat this humble man? The coming week, which we call Holy, we will see and reflect upon what decisions the crowd makes. We are visioning how a world is meant to be, with the teachings of Jesus arriving in the large city of Jerusalem. However, we know how this all ends, with him broken on the cross. The ones shouting Hosanna one day are calling crucify him the next day. Like the world we are living in, which we saw as normal a short time ago, now is in a global earthquake. We hear and see a brokenness. The writer F. Scott Fitzgerald described intelligence as the ability to hold two opposing ideas in mind at the same time and still retain the ability to function. I'm asking you to stay strong as we live out two contrasting worlds. The worlds we knew a few weeks ago and the world illness we are living through now. I see this as the challenge of Palm Sunday. We will see the passion of Jesus played out in front of us during Holy Week. Jesus wept at the brokenness around him. He spent a long night in the garden, and we can identify because we are spending long times contemplating the brokenness of the world right now. We are experiencing the sorrows on a scale like a global earthquake happened. We are also hearing, in the midst of tragedy, the unselfish powers of goodness, which is the foundation of Jesus' life. The power humans have to encourage one another and to serve in the face of danger. We do not carry our powers of good in complete isolation. We find ways to burst out through acts of grace to help the afflicted, comfort the broken, cry with the suffering, and support the caregivers. In this time of uncertainty, during Holy Week, remember Jesus humbly walked with us and felt every emotion we are going through now. He is not off in the clouds like a divine being out of touch, but a flesh and blood example of how to live with difficulty. We have a spiritual commonwealth with God and each other. Sin is not the breaking of man-made rules, but the betrayal of one another when in need. What is lifted up is the example of an unselfish, life-giving relationship Jesus gave us when he walked these streets. We have the example of unselfish love for others shown to us by Jesus as a perfect model of love. Bless you as we walk this difficult journey, and please know you are not alone.